be sure to follow me on Instagram. There you can hang out with me and talk to me directly. Okay, so for those of you guys who were following our videos on, or at least our first video on J. Michael Straczynski's Thor, haven't forgotten about you guys. It's just been super, super busy, but we are picking this up. And in this video, Loki becomes a chick. Loki becomes a woman. Now, in the last video, we basically ended with Thor essentially recreating Asgard in Broxton, Oklahoma. In this part of the video, we actually move forward to a video that we actually did a rundown on. Like we did a rundown on Iron Man versus Thor. And that was really, really fun, right? That was a really fun one to do. But in order to keep it in continuity with, or I guess keep it in line with how we're doing these videos, we're gonna kind of run over this again, not super hardcore, but we're gonna run over this again because this takes place after the events of Civil War. Now remember, during the whole events of Civil War, like we were looking at that and we were kind of hoping the good guys would win. They didn't. The bad guys, well, I guess what passes for the bad guys won. Superhuman registration won out, right? Now, there were a few things that came out of Civil War that even after Civil War we didn't cover. Like we didn't cover the Mighty Avengers, which came after Civil War. That was basically the Avengers team that served as kind of an antithesis to the Secret Avengers, right? But the way that played out is you basically had Carol Danvers leading an Avengers team that kind of operated as a long arm of superhuman registration, right? Like if you weren't registered and you were running around doing things, like Carol Danvers' Avengers team would catch up to you. Eventually, Mighty Avengers was rebranded and rechristened and essentially became Luke Cage's Mighty Avengers, which included Adam Brashear, the Blue Marvel, which was really, really good. It was a really good run. But this takes place almost immediately after, right? So Iron Man is now the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Superhuman registration is in effect, and superheroes cannot operate within the United States unless they register themselves with S.H.I.E.L.D. and the federal government. The problem with this is that this is Thor, right? So Thor just does what he wants to. And that's just the way it is. And it's hilarious because, when he gets to New Orleans, of course, this is post-Hurricane Katrina, so New Orleans is in a lot of ways devastated. Getting in here, remember, Thor is on the hunt for Asgardians, but Thor doesn't know explicitly what the Asgardians look like, right? Like all he knows by virtue of what it was that Donald Blake told him is that the Asgardians aren't truly dead, right? Like their spiritual essences have basically lived on and recreated and like created human forms, right? Like there's beings that are out there where their spirits have gone into those individuals, and it's up to Thor to find them. And so what he ends up doing is tracking down this guy who's out in New Orleans, and it's like, hey, look, like I know who you truly are, even though you don't know. And this guy's kind of like, well, whatever, man. Like he doesn't know who Thor is, and that's going to be the common theme when it comes to Thor rescuing these various Asgardians. Is they're not going to know who he is, right? They don't even know who they are. They're just kind of beings. Their spiritual essence is kind of hidden and locked away inside these various individuals. The problem with this is that where Thor tries to talk reason into the sky, suddenly he's met by the arrival of Iron Man. And let me tell you something, Thor is pissed. Like Thor was already in like a really pissy mood. Iron Man makes it worse because what he does is show up here. This is one of the things I love the most about the rundown when we did that episode, right? Like Iron Man showed up here and like he's tough, right? Like he's the big guy, right? Like he's the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's like the big dude on the block. Iron Man's like, dude, you have to work within the system. You have to register. And Thor just calls down the thunder and immediately like gets to work. Like he starts going to work on Iron Man. And the reason why is for those of you guys who never saw the rundown video and who never saw my videos on Civil War, during that event, what you ended up learning is that at some point in the past, Iron Man, Reed Richards, these guys, really more Iron Man than anybody else, had taken a piece of Thor's hair so that if Thor ended up perishing, they could copy him, they could clone him, they could make a new version of him. And they did that, right? The character's name was Ragnarok, which is kind of stupid, but they ended up basically making like a robot version of Thor, which went awry and actually killed a superhero named Goliath, who was previously one of the individuals who used PEM particles to become a superhero. And so as a result of that, you've basically got like Thor sitting here saying, okay, so like, let me see if I understand this, man. So basically I died, or at least I was believed to have died, and in order to honor my memory, you make a robot out of me, which in turn kills one of our superheroes, and then you show up here on running up on me telling me that I've got to follow your rules. He's like, no, man, like you're a human, dude. I'm a god, man. So like I don't follow your rules, you follow mine. And it's amazing because he immediately goes to work on Tony Stark. It's not even a contest, right? Like it's not even like Tony Stark's putting up a good fight and he's standing a great chance. No. Tony Stark is getting decimated. Like it's one of the coolest things, right? Like this is one of the reasons why I loved J. Michael Straczynski's writing. He was so good at this because he would be like, hey guys, I'm going to show you a fight, and I'm going to show you a fight that's won quite readily and in no uncertain terms, and it's going to be awesome. And that's literally what happens here, right? Like Iron Man chooses repulsor beams, Thor hits it away. I mean, there's nothing that Iron Man can really do here. The response here of Thor is, here is how things are going to work, right? It's not even saying like, let's come to an agreement. It's no. Like I'm going to tell you how how it's going to work, and then you're going to accept it, and you're going to go forward with it, or you're going to die. And it's basically like, I rebuilt Asgard in Broxton, Oklahoma, and there it will stay. I am on a mission to find my Asgardians, and when I do, they will travel to Broxton, Oklahoma, and they will reside in Asgard. That's how it's going to be. Like, your affairs, your whole thing with your laws of men and all that kind of stuff doesn't apply to us, because at any given point, we could just say the heck with it and raise this world to the ground. So either you can do what we tell you to do, or you can perish. It could be easy or it could be hard, man. And so as a result of that, Iron Man's just kind of like, yeah, dude, good talk. And he basically leaves, right? He basically leaves, and he ends up traveling back to his base of operations, back to S.H.I.E.L.D. and everything, looking at how readily his armor was destroyed by Thor. And when the question's asked, well, what do we do? Like, are we going to do anything about Broxton? And the response of Iron Man is, no, we're not. We're going to leave it there. And the reason why is because they're playing a dangerous game, right? Like, what we end up learning is this guy that Thor was trying to get his hands on, that he's been talking to, once he reasons with this guy, and once he says, hey, look, I get you don't want to leave these people behind, but you have a higher duty here, and you have to recall what that higher duty is. And so the result of that is this guy basically says, okay, and then he basically allows Thor to bring that essence out, and we end up finding that this guy is Heimdall. Right now, this is the reason why Thor went for him, is because Heimdall is all-seeing. He can see everything out there. And so in response to that, what this means is that with Heimdall on the side of Thor, and Iron Man basically saying, hey, look, I don't know exactly if that's what's going on, but I do know that things are kind of popping off here, they'd be picking a fight with gods. The Avengers would be foolish if they decided to go to war with Asgard. You would need some big heavy hitters fighting on the side of the Avengers in order to be able to win. But the chances of those guys actually working for them are slim, because Iron Man's pissed everybody off. So like, no one's gonna really side with him. If Iron Man shows up to like to all the superheroes who have gone underground with his hat in his hand and saying, hey guys, so like, I kind of screwed up and I need your all's help to basically survive against Asgard, they're gonna be like, sorry about your luck, and they're gonna send him packing. And that's basically gonna be it. And so as a result of that, what you end up getting is Thor jumping from one location to the next, traveling to various locations. He ends up traveling to Africa, basically dealing with these freedom fighters, and the freedom fighters are being led by what's basically the Warriors 3. It's a cool thing to see Thor moving from one location to the next and basically waking up these various Asgardians and then gathering together and having them returning to their previous form. Now, the cool thing is he doesn't just like bail out, right? So like in the instance of these African freedom fighters, it's not as though he shows up here and he's like, excuse me, everybody stop what you're doing, I gotta wake up my Asgardian friends. And he wakes them up and it's like, okay guys, everybody back to it, gotta go. And then he basically leaves. He stays in fights, right? He stays and helps. And that's one of the important things to bear in mind when it comes to Thor, is at the moment, the priority in what Thor's doing is waking up the Asgardians and bringing them back, right? But it's not like he's gonna leave a country of innocent people to die and just be like, that's just kind of the way it goes, man. It's business as usual, and call it a day. The cool thing about this is that once the Warriors 3 are restored, notice this, Thor's going with the people he trusts the most, right? He trusts Heimdall more than anybody else, because Heimdall really has no reason to lie. Heimdall's loyalty, his absolute loyalty, is to the protection of Asgard. It's the role he serves, right? And not only that, of course, he's got the all-seeing eye, so basically he can tell Thor where to go and who to look for. But at the same time, bringing in the Warriors 3 are his most trusted companions when it comes to engaging in conflict. And so what ends up happening here is Heimdall basically points Thor in the direction of a place where various individuals are being kept imprisoned. This place is kind of hidden. This place is locked off. Nobody's really supposed to know. But he basically says a huge number of our group, of us Asgardians, are being held here in this location by a foe that I can't tell you about. You're basically going to have to go and you're going to have to face this foe on your own and do the best you can. When he gets in there, when he ends up discovering what this foe is, it's the Destroyer armor. The Destroyer's got a long history when it comes to Asgard, right? The Destroyer armor was originally created by the Sky Fathers, but mostly Odin, in order to basically defeat the Celestials, or at least to challenge the Celestials. But the Destroyer armor is an insanely powerful piece of technology, right? Like an insanely powerful being. And so Thor facing off against the Destroyer really takes all he has. And it's cool to see that, because when that happens, when the Destroyer armor is ultimately defeated by Thor, the Destroyer armor cracks open and out falls Balder the Brave. And this is cool, because if you go and you look at Norwegian mythos, like the actual Asgard, I guess really the real mythos of Asgardian here in the real world, the fates had decried that if Balder the Brave were to die, that it would signal the starting of Ragnarok. And that's one of the reasons why Balder the Brave was bathed in waters to where he was basically immortal. The only thing that was missing was a single section of him. In Marvel Comics, Balder the Brave is similar in that regard, but if he dies, it doesn't mean Ragnarok is going to happen. The cycle of Ragnarok, the way the prophecies were laid out, is that Loki was the one who was going to kick off Ragnarok. And so it really ties somewhat into the real world mythos, insofar as Balder's a character who basically, like, it was always like, if he dies, something bad will happen. That was really kind of the gist of it, right? It was the idea that if Balder died, the cycle of Ragnarok would start. It wasn't until you started getting into the years leading up to Thor disassembled in the Ragnarok story that it was like, Balder doesn't really have anything to do with it at all. He can die and it'll suck, but it's not going to start Ragnarok. It was basically Loki will start Ragnarok. He's the source of it all. And so as a result of that, Balder basically speaks to Thor and says, like, the idea here was that I had always existed in such a way to where it was my job to protect Asgard, right? Like, if I fell, Asgard would fall as well. And the problem with this is that when I fell, I had failed in my mission. I had failed to protect Asgard. And so as a result of that, I didn't really know what to do. Like, it was an internal conflict in myself between accepting the fact that Asgard had fallen, there was nothing I could have done about it, and the fact that I failed. And so as a result of that, what it basically did is it led to him basically being thrown inside the destroyer armor and then gathering all of his people together. And it really led to him imprisoning them. But regardless of the circumstance, with Baldur being freed, of course, Baldur's basically sent back to Asgard. And so what ends up happening is Thor gets in here and he's grabbing the last of the people who were there, and he ends up coming upon a woman who he believes to be Sif. And as he starts talking, as he says, turn around, my love, it's good to see you again, my beautiful woman, my beautiful dear, the love of my life. She turns around, hello, my love, and it's Loki. Loki becomes a chick. Loki's a girl, but Loki being a woman is amazing because what he basically did was steal the body of Sif. He stole the body that was meant for Sif. Now, here's the funny thing is Loki kind of parades around and really presents himself to Thor in such a way where he's basically harmless now, because what he says is like, my entire existence leading up to the events of Ragnarok was to cause Ragnarok, right? Like everything I did was for the purpose of causing Ragnarok, of getting to a point where Ragnarok would basically be initiated by me. But that was the sole purpose that I had. That's all that I was really supposed to do. And now that I've done that, there's no reason for me to be a bad guy anymore. I'm basically starting over. I'm starting from scratch. Like I'm doing things all over again. I'm basically a good guy now. Now, Thor extends a bit of an olive branch, but the olive branch is on a pretty short leash, right? I mean, Thor's not like, well, okay, brother, I trust you, man. Like, it's awesome to see you again, bud. It's cool to see here because what we end up learning, this is one of the reasons why I love the character of Loki so much. What we end up learning is that none of this is what it appears, because what Loki does is he starts communicating with somebody who we can't see. And Loki basically starts saying that Thor is a bit of a goof. Thor trusts people implicitly, or trusts his Asgardians implicitly, which is not the worst thing in the world, but there are Asgardians out there who want to see him fall. And so as a result of that, what Thor will do is Thor will basically lie in wait, and Thor will start releasing different people based on those he can trust the most or those he can trust the least. But what's going on here is Loki saying, we can basically have our chance. You and I working together as those individuals are released, as Thor begins to release those individuals whom he trusts and whom will operate under the guise of, I'm here to fulfill my purpose and I don't really have any ill will against you, Thor. They will lie in wait. And what they'll be waiting for is somebody to help them make a move, somebody who can help them achieve their goal without fear of being totally obliterated by Thor, whatever that goal happens to be, most likely the fall of Thor. And so with this individual who Loki's speaking to, if he's basically saying, if we work together, we can work alongside those individuals who want to see Thor fall, and we can bring ruin to Thor. We can bring him down, and then we can basically plunder Asgard. Like we could seize control of that entire place. And the person you end up finding out Loki is talking to is none other than probably the greatest villain in all of Marvel Comics, Victor Von Doom, a la Dr. Doom. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.